What's up, ladies? So tonight is our third video in our new series, Hurry Up God. And if you didn't see the first two videos, you're going to want to check those out at Life Church Allentown and our YouTube page. So definitely check it out. The first one deals with the heart and the transformation of a woman whose husband has been unfaithful. And the second one is a video about purpose and direction and waiting on God for your next move. So Hurry Up God is a series of courageous conversations where we focus on times and seasons where we're waiting on God. No one likes to wait on God, but we do. We do. Much of our Christian walk is spent waiting, trusting, believing, hoping, standing. And so what do we do in the process of waiting, right? So tonight our conversation is with Doremi from Life Church Allentown Sisterhood, and we're so excited to have her. So tell us a little bit about yourself before we get started.
Hi, I've been with Life Church really since a youth, but as an adult, I started coming probably like the last 7 to 8 years, and I've been serving with Sisterhood, I want to say like 5 years as a table lead. I'm a registered nurse. I've been doing this for a really long time. I work with the renal transplant patients. I have 2 children. One who's going to start driving soon. She's going to be 16 the beginning of fall. And I have an 8-year-old. I've been married for 19 years with my high school sweetheart. And we just bought our house a few years ago. Got a dog, that stuff.
Nice. So what is it like to be a nurse, a registered nurse during COVID? What's that like?
Well, I mean, that's definitely challenging, but, it was scary. I went through a whole process of, anxiety and, what is this, what's going on? But, I had some good people in my corner to help me kind of, get through that anxiety and fear that I was experiencing. And ultimately now I know that I was created to do that. So it's all good.
Awesome. Well, we're so glad that you're with us tonight, and it's been an honor and a privilege to get to know you better in sisterhood. I know you're real. You are a straight shooter, and I know the women love you and receive from you all the time. So I love having you as part of our leadership. So tell us, we're talking about waiting. We're talking about hard things. We're talking about waiting on God to answer our prayers, things that we're believing God for. And there's so many women that are watching tonight, and I know a lot of them are going to resonate with your story. So tell us something that you're believing God to do, or you have been believing God to do for you.
So currently, like I said before, I've been serving God on my own probably like the last 7 or 8 years. And although my husband believes in God, he doesn't serve God right now. And so that's kind of been our struggle, is just really believing that God one day will, restore his relationship with him. My husband knows the Lord. His parents are pastors. He was raised with the gospel. So he understands who God is. And, I want to believe he has the fear of God, and he believes in Jesus, but he just doesn't have a spiritual walk at the current time. So, with that said, that's really what I've been praying for. And I know that there's a lot of women out there that are in my same position. They may have met their partner, their husband, not being a Christian. And, shortly after, maybe a few years, a few months, whatever the case may be, they find Christ, and their second or their other half hasn't. And so that becomes, it could become a problem along the way with your own spiritual walk, because you're caught between 2 worlds. And so that becomes very challenging.
I totally agree that, when one person grows faster with spiritual things and then the other partner is lagging behind, or, that light bulb isn't turned on yet, I like to consider salvation as like the light bulb going on in our hearts. And it's hard when one has the light on and the other one doesn't. And so, you do mention that your husband has a faith background, so a lot of times, do you think maybe in these situations, and I know I'm kind of straying from our questions, but this just came to me, do you think sometimes there's like old hurt, old wounds maybe even if it was it a denominational church or non-denominational?
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, I think like we're Hispanic, and so when I know when my first encounter with with church, with being a Christian, was in the Pentecostal church, and so that was his experience too. And so, I mean, I don't know if he had some kind of hurt, but maybe his perception of what church is and what Christ is can be stemmed from his experiences as a child, where you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't wear this, you can't listen to this, you can't watch these movies, you can't hang out with those people. So, I mean, oftentimes we hear, well, I'm not going to go to church yet because I'm not ready. Because you feel like you have to give up X, Y, and Z, and when in reality, that's really not the case. So, I mean, I think that may be the case. Because I mean, he's even said that to me. I'm not ready. I'll come when I'm ready. But if what's going to be left for God to help you with if you come when you're ready?
Yeah, I mean, and we're all in process. I mean, whether you've been in the church for 30 years, it hasn't been perfect for 30 years. We're all in process. We're all in that, getting better and better, and improving our walk and improving our talk, and really just living things out and being real, right? So how is waiting on God? What is that process looking like? What does the struggle look like for you as a woman of faith, someone you're believing God to, touch your husband, for your husband to respond, to God the way that you would love him to? What does the day in and out of that struggle look like? What does that process look like for you?
It's a lot of like, Lord, I need grace today, because like I said, you have the challenges where you have those challenges where you want to respond back a certain way, the way that you used to, and you have to remind yourself, like, that's not who I am anymore. How am I going to set the example for him to come to Christ? And so the waiting time gets frustrating. It gets frustrating because you don't want to wait. I know for me, like personally, you read stories from the Bible, and people waited for years. People, they waited for years to have children. They waited for years to get out of, the desert. I don't want to wait years. I don't want to wait 20 years. I don't want to wait 40 years. I know that I have to be patient because there is a transition phase where God has to do his work, right? And I felt a deep conviction, and God told me, but I waited for you. And that kind of, like, I was like, whoa, like when somebody just kind of, and I was like, man, and he just kept talking to me, and he said, I waited for you, and I didn't rush your process, and I waited with you, and I still wait with you. And so, it's a lot of reflecting back on yourself and, your spiritual walk, and really like reflecting what your expectations are, because, just because one day my husband's going to come to Christ, that's not going to mean your problems are going to go away. He's not going to change overnight. So really, what are your expectations? I was actually just talking about that with somebody just last night. And really just working that through the spirit of being patient and allowing God to do it, not you, right? I can't change. I'm not going to be able to change him. That'll be super short-lived because he's going to be doing it by obligation. I have to allow God to really, minister to him, not me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's not easy. That's not easy to believe God and stand and see a person not change as fast as you would like. And that can happen to any of us, even if your husband could be a Christian and you're still believing God to maybe take control of a certain part of, his will or his emotions. And so it's definitely not an easy journey, regardless, whether it's your husband coming to Christ or your husband improving in an area. And for that matter, if a man is watching, it could be the wife as well. So,
Right.
both ways. So here you are, you're waiting, you're believing God. It sounds like it's been a while. It's a journey. It's testing you. It's frustrating, you said. You have to set the example. You probably don't want to preach at him because we know preaching doesn't work. That, that's a whole nother conversation that you might even touch on. But so in the middle of all this waiting, what's happening to you? What's happening in your heart? What's happening in your walk? What's happening in your journey as you wait on God to answer this prayer?
Really, it's just, it's a lot of self-reflection for me. Even in sisterhood, I think, things always tend to come full circle, God always knows what we need when, what we need and when we need it. And so, the last probably 2 sessions for sisterhood, we started really dealing with the idea of identity and purpose and who we are in Christ. And so throughout that process, it actually has helped me with, my marriage. And, again, during this waiting process, what God has really been revealing to me is that, we're really selfish people. And we really tend to worry about, how people do us wrong, and how people do us wrong, and how we hurt, and in vice, and to retaliate again that. So if you're not going to be good to me, then I'm not going to be a good wife to you. And so God really convicted me, was like, you're so concerned and rather distracted on how he's serving me, that you're not serving him the right way, the way I've called you to serve him. And so it was really self-reflecting on, how am I being a good wife? How can I be a better example? Because ultimately, like, what I really felt was God saying, I don't want him to think that I came between you and him. I don't want that now you go to church and now you're involved in all of these things, and he feels like, you're cheating on him with me, because that's not the case. God came to restore my marriage, not to tear it apart.
Wow, that's good.
Yeah. So, and I mean, and also, again, with the selfish part, like, why do I really want my husband to serve Christ? Is it because I want my problems to go away? Because, I don't want to have to, argue about marriage stuff, finances, children, homes, work, cars, whatever the case may be. Do I really care about my husband's soul? Do I really care that he has a real, authentic relationship with God? Do I really care about that? And that was, like, super convicting for me. And I mean, obviously we do, but when God convicts you in that way, it really has you really think about and restructure your prayers too. Restructure your prayers, like, wow, Lord, like, yeah, I know I want him saved, but really, like, I want my problems to go away. Yes, I do. But do I really care about this stuff? So it gets you to think. It's a lot of self-reflection. And I think that, with that said, it always comes back full circle, because initially God said, stop focusing on him and focus on me. And then he showed me all of these reasons why I need to work on being a better wife, because clearly, I could be doing better.
That's good. That is so good. So how do you, in the midst of waiting, and how do you encourage yourself? Like, how do you stay encouraged? How do you encourage yourself spiritually? How do you encourage yourself practically? And this is a loaded question, because the reality is, like you said, we don't behave. We're not always on point. We don't always get it right. We don't always respond right, and that could be for all of us. You don't have to have a spouse that doesn't have his light on to be in this situation. And the reality is that we do get in our flesh, and we do have bad days, and we probably have days we cry ourselves to sleep, and we have days that we want to get in a fetal position and not face the world. What do you do? How do you stay encouraged? How do you stay hopeful? And what does that process look like spiritually and practically?
I mean, for me personally, I had to really just decide, like, am I going to do this or am I not going to do this? You know, like how serious am I going to be with, you know, praying for my husband to really, like, am I going to do this or am I not going to do this? And what is it going to take? And I really, you know, you have to have a solid relationship with God. You know, you have to just decide that, you know, you don't want to be back and forth with your own walk. And, you know, so that was it for me, is really deciding, like, okay, I'm gonna stick to it. I'm gonna fast. I'm gonna pray. I'm gonna read the word, even when you don't want to. And that's hard, because especially when you're not having a good day and you're not having a good day with your spouse, you don't want to be praying for them, those, you know, intense prayers that you need to be praying. But you got to push through it. You got to push through it, and you got to do it, and God will honor you. He's honored me for it. So you gotta be solid in the word. And then also, I think that you need people in your corner. You need a support system, and it can't just be anybody. It can't just be, you know, just random people from the church. I love people from the church. They're great people. I'm not saying anything about it, but I mean, you need people that you can really lean towards, that are going to be praying for you, and they're really, really real about it. Because that's, you know, that's your accountability. That's the people that, you know, you can call and be like, you know what, I'm not doing well. And you don't even need to explain to them what's going on. They're just there. And that means a lot. That means a lot, and it goes a long way.
Absolutely. I mean, as I was preparing for this Zoom tonight and just doing a little bit of research, and you know, I came across something. And it had to do with just believing God, you know, for our spouses. And it said, one of the things it said was, find a mentor. You know, it can be very helpful to find a mentor while you're going through what you're going through, so that you have someone else to encourage you, to inspire you. And I also think it's important to find someone who's been going through the same thing that you've been going through, and maybe has gotten to the other side.
Right.
I think it takes special people to pray with you and stick it out with you. And I know someone could be saying, well, you know, pray, and God doesn't do anything. Yeah, every time you pray, he's doing something. Every time you pray, it's like that rock is being hit in the core. And there's a verse in the Bible that talks about that. One day, that prayer is going to hit that rock the right way, and that rock's going to open up. But God hears us. God is listening to us. And those are spiritual things. But then there's also those practical things, you know, there's hanging out, and there's chilling, right? And just being with people that make you laugh, and taking your kids places, right? Things like that. What are some of those things that you do to just kind of occupy yourself? What do you do for fun? What do you do to just take your mind off of it all?
I have a trail right by my house. I do a lot of that. Actually, I mean, we all hear, like, nature really makes you feel closer to God. That's so true. That's so true. I sit a lot on my deck. I don't have a lot of alone time, because now with the pandemic, you know, the kids are home. My husband's actually on furlough as well. So my house, we're always together. So it's kind of hard now to take that time. But, you know, prior to that, I would go a lot and just walk on the trail, and, you know, just plug in your headphones and just, you know, have that alone time. You really do. I mean, it's really purifying when you take the time and you're intentional to do it. You know, you really get a lot out of it.
It's good.
Yeah.
Good. So as we wrap up here, and you communicated your heart so well, you know, just what you're believing God for, how you're standing, the frustration part, the struggle. How do you encourage other women? Because one thing I know about you, from the moment I met you, I could tell you're like a magnet, and you attract women to you because of your strength, because of your courage, because of your wisdom. And you've done a lot of work on yourself. And we've talked about this. And so a lot of women are attracted to you. But how do you encourage them? How, you know, what heartfelt encouragement do you have for those that are waiting on God in a similar situation like you? How do you encourage them? What would you say to them?
Honestly, I would, and this is just really what I tell myself, is your marriage is worth it. It's worth it. And don't give up. Pick your battles. Don't give up and push through. I mean, and we've talked about this before, I'm not an advocate for sitting and staying in an abusive relationship. I don't condone that. I don't think that it's right. I think you should be safe. But it's easy to give up. We live in a culture where it's just easy to give up. It's easy to get a divorce. It didn't work out. I want to be comfortable. I want to be happy. I want to gratify myself. And it's like nothing is worth fighting for anymore. And, marriage is a sacrifice, and it's worth fighting for. And it's okay to struggle a little bit, and it's okay to suffer a little bit. So just keep going. I know for me, you hear messages and you hear people, oh, breakthrough is coming, a breakthrough. And I'm like, Lord, I'm waiting for the windows of heaven to open. Like, when? But I remind myself, like, what if this time, he'll say, I want to come to church. What if this time he'll say, let's pray? And so, when you don't have faith, just hope. Hope builds faith for me anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, you said something really powerful that made me excited. You talked about, it's worth fighting for. And you said it's okay to suffer for a little bit. I see and I hear a lot of people, in a way, even though I'm not super old school, I grew up with old school, and I grew up seeing old school prayers, old school faith. And I'm talking about that faith that they're at it, man. They're just boom, 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 and they don't let up. And the person that I think about the most is my mother-in-law. And I met Pastor G when I was 14. So I got to see and I wasn't a Christian when I met him. And as we became more serious in the relationship, as you can be at 14, because you ain't got no business being in any relationship at 14, but whatever it was, eventually at 18, I did respond to Christ. But I always say the only reason why I came to Christ, I believe in my heart, is because that lady prayed for me. And her prayers, I would watch her pray for her husband, but I literally believe that she prayed me into God's kingdom. And so when we got married at 18, he was 19, I was a Christian. I was a super baby Christian. And I really believe it was because of her prayers. And God did a quick work, because I was a hot mess. And I just think he knew where I was going. And if he didn't reach me, I don't even know. I would have been a statistic. There's no doubt about it. Because I had the whole background package for a typical Latina statistic. But God had other plans, and he saved me like that. My story is a little different, but the main ingredient in both our stories is prayer. And, God responded quickly with prayer. But my point is, my mother-in-law, she was relentless. And I know Pastor Maribel's mom they grew up in the same church. They're cut from the same cloth. There's that relentless tenacity to pray and to just not give it rest. And I think that's what's missing in today's generation. I think you have a lot of people that show up for counseling. I want a divorce because I'm not happy. Well, who said your husband was supposed to make you happy? I mean, like, who said that was his job? Yeah. Like, it's not my husband's job to make me happy. In fact, I don't even see happy in the Bible that often. I see joy, but see, joy is a whole different thing, and I can learn to be joyful and content and find pleasure in life, even while I'm struggling with my husband. Right. Yeah. I can still serve, I can still bless others, I can still help, work, be joyful, whatever the case is, even while I'm going through something hard. So, for those of you that are watching and listening, I love I hope you caught it. She said, it's okay to suffer for a little. Like, suffering is part of the Bible. We don't like to talk about it, but you're suffering for something good. Now, I will say this, if you are in an abusive situation, if your situation is, I'm waiting on God to change my husband, but he's abusing me physically and emotionally, then you need to get help. That's a whole different conversation. And our advice to you is definitely get help and get out of that situation, because you need to be safe. Right. So we hope that, do you have any last words before we close this out, or anything else that you want to say to women before we close this out?
Just be encouraged. Be encouraged and trust God. Really, just trust God. He's not going to let you down. You know, the word says that, you know, God's word never comes back void. And if he makes those promises to you, he's going to fulfill them and you're going to prosper. So trust God.
Good. That's good. So I'm sure in many ways you can relate to her journey, and you might find yourself in a similar situation tonight, battling and standing, asking God to hurry up with your spouse. You know, these situations are not easy. They're very delicate and they can be discouraging. Tonight, we want you to know that God sees you and he is with you and he is standing and he is fighting with you. Hard pain and testing are they're never a waste to God. He doesn't waste hard pain and testing. We're going to leave you with 2 verses tonight. James 1 verse 3. It says, when your faith is tested, your endurance has a chance to grow. So when your faith is tested, your endurance has a chance to grow. Psalms 34:18. The Lord is close to all whose hearts are crushed by pain. You know, God is super close to us when we're experiencing pain, when we're feeling crushed. And I know these seasons of waiting for someone's heart that you love so deeply, that you share children with, like there's nothing more painful than watching someone you love not respond the way that you'd like them to. That's very painful. And so the Lord is telling you tonight that he's with you. He's with those whose hearts are crushed by pain. And then Deuteronomy 33:27. I love this verse. The eternal God is your refuge, and his everlasting arms are under you. So God is our refuge, and his everlasting arms are under you. Picture yourself under God's arms and him holding you. Picture yourself that way. He's got us. He's holding us and he's fighting with us. So you're loved. Keep standing. Keep encouraging yourself in the Lord. Keep up the good fight of faith for your spouse. We love you and we'll see you next week. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.